Okay, let's talk about a Wall Street darling, a company that was pretty much worshipped for its AI magic in the ad world. And then boom, it just completely imploded. This story is a case study you absolutely cannot ignore.
First, let's just soak in the high point. We're talking a 713% gain in a single year. That made it the top dog on the entire NASDAQ 100. Everybody, and I mean everybody, thought these guys had found the cheat code to printing money. But you know how it goes. The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
And here comes the fall. In just 2 weeks, 40% of its value gone, vanished. All it took was a couple of reports from some short sellers, the folks who bet on a stock going down. It was like a surgeon's scalpel, just slicing right into the company's main artery. The so-called AI king was bleeding out, and fast.
So what in the world happened here? 1 minute, it's the star pupil of the NASDAQ, the next, it's a full-on public war zone. The big question is this a brilliant, innovative AI company getting taken down by a bunch of market vultures? Or was this whole empire built on a house of cards from the very beginning? Let's get into it.
All right, let's start peeling back the layers of this onion, starting with the tech side of things, what the short sellers are calling the technical sins. And look, they're not talking about a few honest mistakes here. The accusation is that they were systematically and very brazenly breaking the fundamental rules of the internet.
And this is where it gets really juicy. The core claim isn't just about bending the rules. It's that their entire business model, the very engine of that 713% growth, was built on biting the hand that feeds them. We're talking about systematically violating the terms of service of the huge platforms they need to even exist.
At the heart of it all is this thing called a persistent identity graph. The reports, not very subtly, just call them pigs. So what is it? Well, imagine taking all the little breadcrumbs of your digital life from all over the web and stitching them together to create one giant, permanent super dossier, all about you. Yeah, that's it.
So how they allegedly pull it off? It's like a 3-step assembly line. Step 1, you scrape, or let's be real, you steal, the unique IDs that platforms like Meta and Google assign to users. Step 2, you stitch all those different IDs together into one master file that follows a person everywhere online. And step 3, you use that master file to hit them with ads, totally bypassing the privacy rules of the very platforms you stole the data from. It's old-school fingerprinting, just scaled up to an industrial level.
Oh, but the fun doesn't stop there. The allegations also include stuff like silent installs, where they'd use system permissions to sneak apps onto your phone, sometimes without you even knowing. Then there's the claim that they were copying Meta's homework, basically making their advertisers spend a ton of money on Meta first, just so Applovin could watch and reverse engineer what worked. And of course, you've got the classics, like designing ads with those fake moving X buttons to trick you into clicking.
Okay, if you thought that was bad, buckle up. That was just the warm-up act. Now the story goes from kinda sketchy tech behavior to something straight out of an international crime thriller. Seriously.
And here's the absolute bombshell. A whistleblower report alleges that this company became a pipeline for laundering over $3 billion for a global criminal organization. And we're not talking about small-time stuff. We're talking money from massive fraud operations. $3 billion with a B.
So where did all this cash supposedly come from? Well, a report filed with regulators breaks it down. We're looking at nearly $1 billion traced back to a collapsed peer-to-peer lending scam in China, and another $2 billion plus from illegal offshore gambling. The implication here is just staggering, that the seed money for this celebrated tech company might have been dirty from day one.
And this is where you see the really dark side of AI. The claim is that Applovin's supposedly morally neutral algorithm was the perfect tool for these criminals. It could allegedly find people who had already been victims of pig butchering scams, flag them as easy targets, and then bombard them with a second wave of fraud. The AI didn't just find customers, it became a system for re-victimizing the vulnerable.
So you're facing allegations that could literally end your company and maybe even send people to prison. What do you do? Well, let's see how Applovin handled it.
The CEO came out swinging, running the classic crisis PR playbook. It was a point-by-point denial of everything. Data theft? Nope, we're fully compliant. Fraudulent clicks? Never. Every download is a choice. Financial crimes? Those are just baseless lies. And then the pivot. He blamed it all on greedy short sellers trying to tank the stock for a quick buck. Sound familiar? It's literally page 1 of the How to Be an Embattled Tech CEO handbook.
And this really gets us to the heart of the matter. Is this whole story about one uniquely bad company? Or do these reports just happen to blow the lid off the entire ad tech industry's dirty little secret? In other words, are these shocking revelations, or are they just exposing the unspoken rules of how this game is actually played on a global scale?
Which brings up a pretty cynical question, right? Were the big platforms like Meta and Google really clueless about all this? Or was it more of a convenient don't ask, don't tell situation? I mean, think about it. Applovin was driving billions in ad revenue, helping those platforms hit their sales targets. When everybody's getting rich, who's really in a hurry to look under the hood?
But here's the thing about unspoken rules. They tend to stay unspoken until a regulator shows up with a massive spotlight. And in the US, that regulatory hammer eventually falls. And when it does, it makes things very public and very painful.
And there it is. The risk just went from theoretical to very, very real. Bloomberg confirmed it. The SEC, the top financial cops in the country, has opened an official investigation. The feds are officially in the building. And that, my friends, changes everything.
And the SEC is just the beginning. Now the company is staring down a whole alphabet soup of federal trouble. You've got the Department of Justice, who could seize their assets. You've got CFIUS, the national security folks, looking into that major shareholder. And you've got the FTC, who can levy huge fines for deceptive practices. This isn't just a lawsuit anymore. It's a multi-front war with the U.S. government.
Okay, enough roasting. Let's talk about what all this chaos actually means for you. The founders, the CXOs, the people trying to build real global businesses. What are the lessons we can pull from this giant dumpster fire?
This whole case is basically a perfect checklist of what not to do when you take your company global. Let's just run through them. 1. Compliance is not optional. What you think is a gray area in one market can be a straight-up felony in the US. 2. Your partner's risk is your risk. If your ad tech provider is shady, their problems will become your problems. 3. The politics of your investors matter. Their background can trigger a national security review that could torpedo your business. And 4. Growth built on a foundation of sand will collapse. It's just a matter of when.
So as you build out your own global business, you have to ask yourself a really tough question. Is the engine that's driving all your growth also your single biggest point of failure? Is it an asset or is it a time bomb? Because if you're still trying to use the old playbook to go global, you're not just a step behind anymore. You might be an entire funding round behind. Think about it.